I'm Scott Allen Miller. It is the 27th of November, 2023. This is my vlog of daily life living in Leon, Nicaragua. I am back from Bolivia, and today is going to be talking about why I had to rush back so quickly and why my trip had to be cut the way that it is. Tonight is my eldest daughter, Liesl's quinceañera. And this is a really big deal because we grew up in the United States, but we've been living in Latin America for a number of years. So I'm going to be telling you about my day and my adventures with my daughter's birthday party when we get back from the bump. Thanks for joining me back here in paradise. The weather is amazing since I've gotten back. It has not been too warm. I'm not even running air conditioning in my office for the last several days. And by the time I'm recording this video, I've been back for a week, which, just for some little housekeeping information, I am still uploading the videos from the trip, like literally the files that I created during the trip. And remember, I was uploading the whole time that I was gone. If you haven't seen my Bolivia episodes, I talk about it a bit. That is still uploading. I'm down, I think today, on the day that I'm recording this, which is actually the 2nd, I'm way in the future, is there's only a few left. Like, it's looking like today is going to be the day that I manage to wrap it up. But it's crazy that it's that much uploading that a week later it's still just full force. Every camera, every laptop, everything I can for my internet connection is just maxed out trying to upload things. That's how much data there is in that amount of time. Plus, I recorded a concert last night for another channel, and that one is going to take a really long time. We don't normally back those up. They're so big that I only send the final compressed video up to YouTube, and other than that, we don't bother keeping it because it's just massive and there's no way to store it, and a lot of the services won't take the files that big. So even with throwing away 100 gigs of data, it's incredible how much there is to back up. So anyway, that's been going on. Today is Friday, and it is the day we're celebrating my daughter's 15th birthday. Her actual birthday is the actual 27th, which coincides with the date on this video. So this is her actual birthday, but we did the quinceañera actually on the 24th. I'm mostly doing this for my own records in the future. So Friday the 24th, I actually got in on 23rd on Thanksgiving, which you'll notice if you track the videos, you can figure that out. So I made it for dinner last night, had dinner with all of our friends. I was absolutely exhausted. I had only had a few hours of sleep with that emergency run through the streets in the morning to make the bus. I had made it for dinner, eaten Thanksgiving dinner, and so between having no sleep, having traveled for 3 days, and then eating Thanksgiving dinner, I was done, right? So I went to bed early, slept in late, and was feeling pretty good today. We have a busy day going on though. So I had a lot of work to catch up on because I've just been gone. There's just a lot to do between videos and my actual job, which I was on a work trip. Like, it's not like I'm not supposed to be there and not supposed to be doing that, but still, there's a lot of backlog, a lot of people waiting for me. So I worked on that as much as I could all day. Dominica and Marcella and Paul were just running around like mad doing stuff for the quince because they have to get the venue ready. They have to get the food ready. They got to make sure all the pieces are in place. Marcella and Chepe ran to Managua to pick up the galletas, the special party treats. We call them galletas. They're basically like cake pops on steroids. They're like the size of an ice cream bar, but they're a cake pop with, it's so rich, right? And but everything came together. It was fantastic. So I'm going to keep today's pretty short because this is really just a day about my daughter's birthday. Obviously, she's 15. That's what a quince is, for those who are unfamiliar. Here in Latin America, and this happens throughout the South and Western United States, where there's a lot of Hispanic culture, and all the way through Latin America. I'm not aware of any area that doesn't do it. The girls' coming of age ceremony, the same as a sweet 16 that we're used to in the United States, or the same as an 18th that they do in Romania, is done at 15 throughout this region. And this is kind of the coming out to society sort of party. It's the one really enormous birthday party that is done. And so this is something that we've lived in or around Latin America for a very long time, right? We first moved to Texas in 2009, and while that is often not considered Latin America, it actually is, right? There's no getting around that. So first of all, when we lived in New York, where Liesl was born, the town that we're in has a very large Hispanic population. So like Guatemalan restaurant down the street, there was a little bit of kind of exposure to that when she was very, very little, and we lived there when she was older as well. But then we moved to Texas when she was super young, at just a couple years old, and so she grew up in this blended North American, Latin American culture, as Texas often is. And outside of the first 6 months when we lived in Irving, we moved to Carrollton, Texas, and actually lived in Little Salvador. So all of our neighbors were from Central America. All the businesses around us were purely in Spanish. A lot of our friends had a lot of Latin American culture backgrounds, cultural backgrounds. All of her nannies and babysitters when she was young were Spanish first speakers. So she was very steeped, and both children were, but for Liesl, she was very steeped in a lot of Latin American culture, even when we lived in the United States. And by the time she was I think 6 years old, we moved first to Spain, then to Panama, then to Nicaragua, and she lived quite a bit in either actually Spanish or Latin American countries, not just Texas, but Latin American countries. So that really reinforced it. When we would go back to the States, we'd be in Texas, but we were often in Latin America. And we really had a good feeling that long term, we were either going to be in Latin America a lot or eventually be based here. So she's always had that mentality. When we were caught in the United States during COVID, she and I spent a lot of time watching a lot of television and stuff together, as everyone did during COVID. And one of the shows that we watched a lot of was One Day at a Time, which is a story of a Cuban family living in America and dealing with a lot of topics, but one of them is being Latinos who live in the United States, and how much to embrace being Latino and how much to embrace being American, and how much that is one and the same, how much it is different, how much they are just two totally unique aspects of someone's personality. And at the time that we watched that, one of the topics that comes up on there is the idea of a quinceañera, and a girl who was struggling with the ideas. Is it something that she would want to do? Does it matter to her? And in her particular case, it was her family wanted her to have a quince, and she didn't really think she wanted to have one. And in our case, we don't have any cultural background, any pressure or anything like that to have a quince. It's not part of our family heritage or anything like that. But because of where we live, because of the things we do, it does potentially make sense, and it may be something that reflects for her personally. And at the time, when she was probably about 11 or 12, she said, "Oh, that's something that's interesting. That seems neat. I might be interested." I was really surprised then that it was something that she was open to embracing, that she already was seeing herself as potentially being enough influenced by Latino culture that she may want to express it in that way. And so it's always been, since she was old enough to really discuss it, something she's kind of had in mind, something she's kind of kicked around as an idea, but it was never something we had to worry about, right? It was a long way away. We didn't know where we were going to be living. A million things could change between now and then. But now that we've been living in Nicaragua for a number of years, that has strengthened, obviously, that feeling of being connected with this part of the world much, much more. And when we first moved here 3 years ago, I've said this before, the girls were very much like, oh, very excited. They love Nicaragua. This is going to be a great place to grow up. They were very, very positive, right? We wouldn't have made this move if they were not on board with it. They were like, absolutely, this as a home base totally makes sense. We still want to travel, but this as a home base, world's better than the U.S. Cool. But they both were very much of a, but when we're older, maybe not right when we turn 18, but 20, 22, we're in that young adult starting to get jobs. We're going to move back to Texas. We're going to live near our family there, maybe not in the same town, but nearby. And Liesl already had apartments picked out that she was really interested in the Austin Ranch area of North Dallas, which are beautiful. And we had been to look at them. Like, she had a really good idea of where she would want to be someday. And my daughters think they probably want to travel together or move together. And they're talking about maybe their cousin would move with them. They're all the same age, right? Liesl is 2 years older than Chana, and their cousin Clara fits directly in between. So they're very close in age and evenly spread between them, and are very close. So they were like, oh, maybe we'll live somewhere together in Texas, and that's where we're going to go back to that. And after living in Nicaragua for only about a year, they were very much of a, nope, we are really glad to be in Nicaragua, and this is home now, and this is who we are, and we don't want to go back to Texas. We want to visit, but we don't want to move back. That's not something that's on their radar. It's not in their plannings. Of course, things change, and who knows what they will do with their lives, but they've really, both of them, embraced being Nicaraguan, and this is their home, this is their identity, this is what they associate with. And it's funny for me because, you know, getting close to 50 and having lived outside of New York for only so much of my life, and for my kids to think about the fact that their ties to the U.S. are very weak. They spent most of their time in the United States when they were very young, and most of their time abroad is when they're much older. So their memories are really solidly a part of not the U.S. from a living perspective. Of course, they remember the U.S. well. They visit it all the time, but they don't think of it as a place that they live. They think of it as a place that they visit. Their memories of their home in New York are fuzzy at best. They have a hard time really describing the layout of what our house used to be, even though we lived there twice. Liesl has no memory of our home in Irving, Texas, our house in Carrollton, Texas, which we did have for a very long time, but we only lived in briefly here and there. They remember well, and for a long time they really thought of that as home. But that has shifted. We've been away long enough that they really think of Nicaragua as home. And so all those things have really played into this internalization of being a part of Latin American culture. And so about 3 to 6 months ago, Marcella was actually talking with Liesl and was kind of like, so have you thought about, do you want a quince or not? And Liesl pretty quickly, not instantly, but pretty quickly was like, yeah, I want to do this. And we're like, seriously? We were so sure that once it got closer to it, she was going to like chicken out, be like, it's a big thing, I don't want to do it, it's too much, sounds neat, but no, she was like, I want to do the dress, I want to do the pictures, I want to do the hair, I want to do the makeup, I want to do the party, I want to do the food, I want to do like the cake, I want to do the dancing and the shoes. And we're like, okay, we're doing this. So it was really amazing. Like the whole experience was really amazing. Both just doing it and having this really important, like, we're getting to participate in Nicaraguan society in this way. It's a piece of connection that we didn't expect we would ever have. And we've been to quinces before in the United States because they are common. We have friends, very close friends, who've invited us to their kids' quinces before, and we've gone, but the kids have never gone, just Dominica and I. And so from a cultural integration standpoint, like, this was really meaningful for us, and I think makes us feel a lot more a part of this place. Like, this is an experience that, you know, the majority of Nicaraguan parents have, right? But we thought was something that we would always be apart from, and now we're a part of. So that's really cool. But also just the fact that my daughter is so feeling connected to this place. Like, it's so great to see her saying, no, this is who I am, this is who I want to be. And we're really proud and excited about that she's taken that step to kind of identify with Nicaraguan society in that way and culture. And so that was just an amazing thing on its own. So today was all planning for that. There was a lot of background, but this is kind of a big emotional day for a father, right? Like, first of all, my baby is 15, which is crazy for parents out there when your eldest is hitting ages where you're like, now she can fly. She's not classified as a minor when flying, and all kinds of things. It's like, oh wow, they get so old so fast. Where does the time go? It really is, right? It just vanishes in a heartbeat. But so this party, we held it at Barbaro downtown. They have an air-conditioned room, which was a bit of a disaster. We got there about an hour before the party was supposed to start. Dominica and Marcella had been there setting up all day, but then when we got there this evening, they didn't have the air conditioning on. They just had the doors wide open. And we're like, it takes time to cool things down. Like, you want the air conditioning to run, because it's not about getting the air cool. It's about getting the tables, the chairs, the floor cool, so that there's a heat sink. So as people come in, the walls cool down the air, and the air conditioning just keeps the place cool, right? You don't want to be cooling it as people come in. It doesn't work that way, right? Like, when you use central air in the U.S., like, you tend to keep your houses cool all the time, and you don't heat them up and cool them down. Like, you just don't do that. So you don't really think about it. But here, where we generally use air conditioning very differently, the idea that you have to warm up the air and let the furniture get cold is something you think about all the time, because like if you're going to bed, just because you can get the air down to 24 degrees doesn't mean that the bed's not going to be 30 degrees. You got to give it a little bit of time. It doesn't take a ton, but you definitely want to run the air conditioning at least 15 minutes before you're going to go somewhere, if not an hour, because you want some of the things to cool down in most cases, not just have the air cool, because you're going to be touching the bed, you're going to be touching a chair, whatever, and you don't want that to be the thing keeping you warm. And it keeps the air warm for a lot longer. So that this was not running, that was a big explanation of air conditioning. Because it wasn't running, we're like in a panic. We're like, okay, we gotta get the air conditioning on. They're like, okay. So they waited a little bit, then they turned it on, and one air conditioning turned on and the other didn't. It didn't react at all. We're like, oh no, this is gonna be a lot of people, and we have this room specifically because it's one of the few air conditioned rooms in the city. And for a party like this, it's got to be air conditioned. It was a very hot night, first of all, not like today. Today's beautiful, but it was really warm on the night of. So this is a big problem. So they spent almost an hour working on that air conditioning, and they did it the last minute. Just as people were coming in, they got it to work. The manager did a little dance, like they had people climbing on tables, they're like trying batteries or everything, and eventually it kicked on. So we had air conditioning, but we were really worried going into the party that we were not going to have it, and everybody was just gonna sweat and melt and be terrible. So, and for those who are wondering, yes, the shoes that I had to have for this, I did get them from the United States. They did fit, they did feel pretty good, and I was in good shape for the party. But that was a big, difficult thing. Just getting my shoes here, my shoes for this ended up costing like $300, which is, and not including the 50 or 80, whatever we paid for the custom-made shoes that didn't fit me, for those who have followed the saga of the shoes. But I did have shoes, was able to dance, everything went well. We had a really nice time. It was very low key and small for a quince here in Nicaragua. Typically it's just packed with people. We have a limited number of close friends and people who would be appropriate for a quince, and it had to be a combination of people that we knew and that could make it, and that were friends with Liesl, not our friends. So we have tons of friends who really don't know our kids, and it wouldn't make any sense. But so this was Liesl's party, but a lot of people ask, right, how many friends do my kids have here? And the reality is they have a lot of friends, but they're all adults. They have very few younger friends. They have some, and they were there, but it's just one or two, right? It's extremely few. So this was a little bit of a challenge from a lack of kids. Typically, quince is just loaded with teenagers, and they have a lot of things that they do on their own. They party and they dance, and this was very quiet, right? Both of my kids had their iPads, and it was a little bit weird that it's Liesl's party, and she's the princess of the ball, and she's got her iPad and doing some of her own personal stuff, but that's how she is, and she was very happy doing that, and she actually had a really good time, even though a lot of it she spent alone. That's exactly how she would like it. So it actually worked out really, really well. It was very much a Liesl party, I think, tailored to her. And her dress was amazing. It was like navy blue. I'm colorblind, so I'm very bad with this stuff. But it was like navy blue with like silver designs on it, and her hair turned out awesome, and they did all this makeup, like she had professional makeup done, but she's never done before, and she's like, I don't know about this. I'm like, this is what you look like for a quince, like this is what appropriate. And she's like, okay, I guess. And it was really cool, and it was a great group of people. Everyone had a good time. The food was excellent. Another reason that we chose Barbaro, they do a good salmon, they do good steak. Like it's very it's not a destination where you'd be like, I got to go to Leon to eat at Barbaro, but they're consistently good meals and a wide variety, right? So they worked out great for that, and we had a good time, and we had a DJ playing music that Liesl had picked out. So Dominic and I danced like pretty much the whole night. We were exhausted. It took until pretty late, but we did get the kids up dancing as well. And we did all the traditional things. We did the father-daughter dance. We did the mother-daughter dance. We did the changing of the shoes. If you're not familiar, the father, so this is my thing, at one point, so Liesl wore combat boots, or were similar, when she goes to the event, and now it's a long dress, so you don't really see it, and then at like the culmination of the evening, it's just before like the real dancing starts, the thing is that the father changes the girl's shoes from normally sneakers, but combat boots, anything like that, a casual or a more childlike footwear, into high heels. And so it's the first time that she's ever been out in high heels. Totally not a Liesl thing, not a thing that you would picture her doing if you knew her. She's not going to walk around the house in high heels. But we did it. She wanted the sparkly high heels for the thing. We did it. I put them on. And then, of course, Dominica corrected them because I put them on kind of poorly. But they were on. I did it. And then we go and dance and do the father-daughter dance. And we dance to Blue Velvet, which is my parents' song song, which was it's a big moment because for a couple of reasons. One is this month is 20 years without my mother. She passed away from cancer almost exactly 20 years ago, and my daughter Liesl is her spitting image. And my parents started dating when my mother was 15. My dad was 17. So long ago in the 1960s, and this was their song. So, and Liesl picked it out. This is the song that she wanted to dance to. So that was a very emotional moment for all of us, for a lot of reasons, including that it was the quince. So that was really special. We partied until about midnight, which is really early for a quince. Like all of us were like, okay, this is where our North Americanness, our Europeanness is kicking in. We're calling it a night. Like we can only go so late. And it was like Liesl and Luciano, they're like, this has been a lot of fun, but we're done, right? There's a limit. So all of us were ready to go. Some of the party actually stayed and kept the room, and I don't know how late they partied. So that was cool that they got to do that. And it was a really good crowd. Like everything worked out really well, and we did the cake was good. We did the cake pops to take home, and everything was really amazing. It was a very special night, and I think a lot of people had fun. Like it seemed like a fun time. Not complete. It was a very traditional quince on a non-traditional scale, I think is the best way to put it. And we did all the things, and it was a great connection, and it was a wonderful night for my daughter, and it was a great night connecting with my daughter, and a very special night for all of us. So thanks for joining me. Very different episode today, a little bit of just our lives here, but this is an important moment for us, and something that we certainly want to remember. It was very touching, a very emotional day. And as always, if you'd like to support the channel, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/ScottAllenMiller, and share the show with your friends, family, post on social media. And tomorrow, we're going to be tackling a what not to do when looking at moving to Nicaragua. And it's a little bit of a rant, not exactly, but it's kind of rant-ish. Sometimes I feel like they're rants, and I watch them, it's like not really a rant, but it's a very adamant, don't do these things because you're going to hurt yourself episode. So you have that coming tomorrow. And on the 29th, I'm planning on an episode discussing solo traveling and how that's important and things to consider. So join me for those, and I will see all of you tomorrow.